Hi, I'm Brad Young with the North Carolina Institute of Political Leadership. I'm joined today by Marquita Robertson, the Executive Director of the Collaborative here in North Carolina. Each week, we're taking a different approach to study leadership and the way that people are modeling it around North Carolina. Today, Marquita is going to talk about a little bit of the work that the Collaborative does and how they're having an impact in people's lives and building assets. Marquita, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on today, Brad.
So tell me a little bit about what the Collaborative is, the history of it, and what you do.
Sure thing. So the Collaborative's mission is to close the racial wealth gap in North Carolina, and we do that through a couple of different ways. One is through advocacy. We support and advocate for legislation and policy that protects North Carolina's most vulnerable citizens, and we also advocate for policies that help to move them out of poverty. The Collaborative also has a capacity building program in which we support other nonprofits that work in this sphere of financial inclusion, asset building, anything related to finances. We provide them with a paid volunteer for a year through the federal AmeriCorps Vista program. And lastly, the Collaborative does do some direct service where we have some entrepreneurship programs. We have some programs where we work with students and their families, and we also do some financial coaching.
So to make, this is a very ambitious goal, obviously, but to make it work in the way that you have and had the success that you've had as an organization, who has to be at the table for this to work?
So who has to be at the table? So one, we need stakeholders. We need organizations that we partner with, nonprofits across the state. We need them at the table. We also, because we're dealing with money and finances, we also need our financial institution partners at the table. That is, banks, credit unions, and the regulators that work with them, like the FDIC and the OCC. And so those folks have to be at the table, but also to inform the work that we're doing. We also need folks with lived experiences, the people that have experienced some of the things that we're trying to support them through. Their voice is also needed at the table as well.
So we're coming at about 2 years of pandemic. The economy has taken a hit, and I assume people's personal finances as a result of that have taken a hit as well. How has that impacted your work, and what are you seeing in that field?
So good question. So early on in the pandemic, we partnered with the IRS stakeholder division. And at that point in time, early on in the pandemic, that stakeholder division was working to help individuals that did not have access to their economic income payments to get the word out about it, how they could get access to them. Many of us received our economic income payments, or what we call stimulus payments, received them pretty early on. We looked in our bank account one day and that money was there. But for a lot of low-income families who had either not what we call tax invisible, or who did not have bank account information on file, these individuals did not get that money as easily as most of us did. And it was largely because they were either unbanked or they, like I said, they did not have a reason to file taxes. And so through this work with them, as we started, going through the experience of someone that did not receive their economic income payments, they would have to go online to the IRS website to type it in and, figure out where is my stimulus. And then they'd have to, if they wanted to receive it, to put in some bank account information. So if you didn't have a bank account to put in, then you would have to request a paper check. And, everybody has their own preference, whether or not they like paper checks or not. But for folks without a bank account, a paper check is just another ordeal. So after they receive their paper check, in April or May of 2020, if you could remember, things were not open. People did not have access to different things the way we do now. And so at that point, folks had to figure out how, once they got their paper checks, how to cash them. If you don't have a bank account, you'll have to use a money center. You'll have to go to your local grocery store or a pawn shop or something of that of that nature. And so what these places do outside of banks, when you go to a place that's not a bank to handle banking business, there's always some fees attached to it. And so some of our most vulnerable folks were being charged with these fees to do basic banking business. And it brought back into perspective the issues of people that were unbanked or underbanked. And through that experience and the work with the with getting folks their economic income payments, the collaborative started looking for ways or opportunities to address this issue. And that is where Bank On North Carolina was launched. And this is a new initiative that we're working on in partnership with the North Carolina Bankers Association, where we are increasing or providing access to anyone in North Carolina with a safe and affordable bank account at all of the large banks that you see in North Carolina and a lot of the smaller banks too. And so what Bank On North Carolina does is, well, to provide some context, if you, some folks are unbanked because they cannot get a bank account. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you had a bank account before and things did not go well and your account was closed and you owed fees, then you go into this credit reporting system for banks known as check system. So if you're in check systems, you cannot get a bank account, and all banks check this before you open an account. And so what Bank On does is it allows people that are in check systems to open bank accounts at, you know, at reputable, legit FDIC insured banks. And these bank accounts at these bank systems all meet these Bank On qualifications or these Bank On standards, and that's no insufficient fund fees, minimum balance, and a lot of the fees that you see typically associated with some bank accounts are not associated with these accounts. And so what this does is it provides everyone with an alternative to the alternative bank. So if someone is using a money center or going to the gas station to get a money order, you know, providing them with a bank that they can go into to get this thing done for pennies or a lot of times with no charges at all is really important. And when we talk about financial mobility, building wealth, you can't build wealth without a bank account. And so this is one of the critical steps that we are working to provide everyone access to as we look to close the racial wealth gap.
And also, you know, we're hearing more and more attorneys general across the country are starting to address some of the scams that we've seen during COVID as well. And a lot of times these are preying on the people that can probably afford it the least. Is there anything that you're working towards? There's education efforts that the collaborative is undergoing to address this?
So we do work as part of our advocacy work. We do work with the Center for Responsible Lending to create awareness around scams and a lot of predatory things that happen. And to be sure, I mean, there's so many things I could start here, talk about, you know, the, you know, tax preparer scams that are happening where folks are trying to help people claim their economic income payments that they could claim on their own without that. So there's so many things, but I will say that through our general work, just to support policies and to advocate for things that protect some of the most vulnerable folks, we are always there and always in the forefront trying to, you know, advocating for them.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Marquita. It's great to hear about all the work that you're doing. Please keep doing it. Very important for the future of our state. We hope you come back and join us again if you have any initiatives you'd like to discuss.
All right. Thanks, Brad. It's good to be on.